every goal, the sound declares. Heartbeats pound like a drummer's song, marching forward, fierce and strong. We're the ones who rise in the clash. Numbers running in a white shirt dash. History burns in the roaring crowd. Every game we scream it loud. I'm Tottenham, Tottenham till I die. Raise the banner, let it fly. High through the rain, through the fire. This is my cause, my only desire. We're the ones who rise in the clash. Numbers running in a white shirt dash. History burns in the roaring crowd. Every game we scream it loud. I'm Tottenham, Tottenham till I die. Raise the banner, let it fly. High through the rain, through the fire. This is my club, my only desire.
Hi guys, and welcome to the greatest Irish Tottenham channel in the world. No, okay, number 2, because Dave's there and I have to be nice to him. But welcome to THFC till I die. Your home of Tottenham past, present, and an exciting future, of course, on the Thomas Frank, as he takes us to the promised land with this group of players. And joining me today with this man's reputation precedes him no fold. He is the myth, he is a legend, he is Mr. Dave Harris from the Irish Hotspur, the legend that we all want to be. Women want to be with him, and men want to be like him. There you go, Dave. How are you?
I'll take that one, lad. That's not a bad intro. Yeah, I'm keeping well, my man. How are you?
Yeah, I'm fine. I'm a bit sad that Tottenham's finished, and we've got Ireland to watch. To be fair, it's a bit like going from a lovely dream to having a severe nightmare. To be, but I'm all right. I'm okay. I just take it as it is. Look. Of course, it is budget day here in Ireland. So me and Dave are keeping a close eye on that, see if they're going to help us. All I know is that I have to go down to the petrol station before midnight to fill up my car because petrol going up again. Cigarettes are going up as well, Dave, just to let you know. 50 cents.
Lovely.
So get down there before midnight.
They go up every year.
Yeah, they do. But look, I wish they put the tax up in Ireland, give you free admission to watch Ireland play. Let's start in Ireland. Not really much to hope for, is there, Dave, to be fair? We're bottom of our group. We lost to Armenia. I mean, it can't get any lower, can it? Or can it?
Unfortunately, I think it can get worse. Look, we know the importance of Ireland qualifying for this World Cup, Darmo, because they needed the money, and Ireland going out to the USA would have generated huge amount of money that would have actually helped sustain Irish football for the long term. But the fact that it looks like we're not going to qualify means, the future looks bleak. And the reason why is because anyone that doesn't know, previous chairman Delaney, he used the funds to fund his own personal lifestyle, his wife's lifestyle and his daughter's lifestyle, rather than actually put it back into grassroots and, put it back into the League of Ireland to help, develop players and, bring even the national team, bring Irish football forward, and it's been an absolute disgrace. And since then, they brought in a new guy and they were told by the government, look, we'll help bail you out. We'll give you some funding if you can keep your books right for a year. And then all of a sudden they end up paying this guy sick leave and all this sort of jazz, even though he didn't take it, which meant they were caught out doing that, channeling funds somewhere that they shouldn't. And then all of a sudden now the government withdrew funding. So the FAI is in a bit of a precarious position in terms of what they're going to do moving forward. Also, when you look at the Irish national team manager, I mean, look, the guy doesn't really want to be here. I think he took the job just for a payday, but we're also in a situation where, not many people do want the Ireland job, or, we can't really afford them. We've heard, I listened to many a podcast. Sam Allardyce said he was approached. Roy Keane said he was approached and everything else. But, the FAI can't even pay them, what they're asking and stuff like that. So we're in a bit of a weird position. Like when you go up and down the length and breadth of this country, it doesn't matter how small the village or how big the town. You go in, they have immaculate GAA pitches all over the country. And the reason why is because they get funding from the National Lottery, and the National Lottery, or they pump that money then into clubs all around the country,
Yeah.
so that it gives them all the best facilities. They've all got club houses, the best of the best training pitches, etc. You look at any football pitch around the country, all it is just a big lumpy field, and it's with a couple of rusty goalposts in the middle and, barely any lines on the pitch. It's absolutely disgusting. That's the sort of shit you're dealing with. There's only very few clubs around the country that actually have good facilities, and that's because notoriously, they were getting funding from the FAI, for the votes to keep the Laney in and stuff like that. So it's just in one big mess. I think the only saving grace, though, Darmo, is the League of Ireland is in a good place. You've got Shamrock Rovers and you've got Shelbourne in the Europa Conference League group stage, stuff like that. They're getting further in Europe than, they've teams have ever done really before from the League of Ireland. Attendances are up all across the games, they're getting packed houses and stuff like that. So I think that's the only saving grace. But also, when you look at the state of the national team, I mean, for years, Dermo, we were crying out for strikers. Now we've got an abundance of strikers. We've got no one to supply them.
Yeah.
We don't really have any great wingers. No, our midfield, we just bypass it because it's non-existent. And one thing Ireland were always good at was defending, and even that shambolic, but only thanks for Tequivine Kelleher, we could have been humiliated in some of these games. So,
yeah,
I mean, in general, we're not in a great state, and I don't really see how we're going to come out of it. We really are relying on this sort of young group of players now in the men's national team to sort of get together and try and get to a major tournament.
I mean, look, here in the budget here, the League of Ireland is going to get over 3 million from the government for the youngsters, for the youngsters that are coming through. So, 3 million is a lot of money for some of these League of Ireland clubs. And it's great. As you said, the League of Ireland's doing great. Attendances are up again, where clubs are doing well in Europe, qualifying for group stages, league phases for the first time in their history. But the national side is a disgrace. And, I'm covering the two games, the Portugal and Armenia game. I don't know why, but I feel I have to. I think we're going to lose to Armenia. If we lose heavily to Portugal on Saturday, I think he has to go Saturday. I'm sorry. There's no point keeping them around. We're not going to qualify. We're not going to. There's a slim hope of getting into the playoffs. A slim hope. And look, we got to catch Portugal twice, having an off day, beat Armenia at home, and beat Hungary away. We haven't got a hell's chance of doing that. And look, I think it's a missed opportunity. I think it is. We could, as you said, qualifying for the World Cup. We did so in 1994. And, sort of 21, 22 years later, we could be doing it again. And you look across the water and you look how well Scotland are doing. You look Wales. Wales is near enough the same size as Ireland, and they can qualify for a major tournament. You look at Scotland. Scotland don't have the greatest league in the world. Only two teams. Mind your Hearts is at top of the league at the moment. And also, they're doing well qualifying for World Cup. I can't say much for England. England qualify for World Cup and European Championships every year anyway. So I think we are very, very... I mean, you've only got to look up the north as well. Northern Ireland are doing well. But I feel these things goes in circles, Dave. And I feel we will come again. But how long is it going to take us to come again? That's the problem. So, look,
well, I think what you're hoping for, though, Dermot, here is a government intervention into the FAI. And look, I don't like government interventions into, football and stuff like that. But unfortunately, for Ireland's case, I think it's needed.
it is.
At the end of the day, we were qualifying for major competitions. We were fighting, we were sort of punching above our weight for long periods. And at the end of the day, everybody loved Ireland. Everybody loved when they came to play, and everyone loved coming to play them.
Yeah.
And now, like, we were well ahead of Northern Ireland, well ahead of Scotland, well ahead of Wales. We made the sort of best of our resources, whereas now, that's not the case, and it's been like that for nearly 2 decades now, Dermot. What I mean? It's gone on far too long, and it needs government intervention. And what I would like to see happen personally is a lot of ex-professionals, the likes of Robbie Keane, Roy Keane, the likes of Damien Duff, John O'Shea, people like that all sort of come together and sort of get a big grip of the FAI, plot a pathway forward. Roy Keane was talking about on the overlap, he was saying he would love to get involved, get down to grassroots, do training days, across the country and all that sort of stuff, which I think will only benefit moving forward. I was in the Irish footballing system growing up, and it's it's so hard just to make it out of the country alone, especially if where you're from isn't connected, to the FAI and stuff like that. So, I mean, I just think the whole thing needs a whole reform. When something's underperforming for that long and you've tried different people and you're still getting the same results, at what point do you give it a full shake-up?
Yeah, it is. And you've been there, Dave. You know what it's like. So, look, we just have to see what happens with Ireland, and hopefully they will get it good. I want to welcome a few people in. Big up to Wayne Bonner. He says, good afternoon, folks. Hope everyone is well. And arrest the twats stealing from the football side of things. Lock them up. Get the fuck in there. Who are rent, corrupt, obsessed with money. Dave, nothing's ever been done about Delaney. He's never been arrested. He's never been charged. Look, it's shocking, isn't it? But look, that's Ireland for you. You know yourself. Our politics was years of corruption in politics. It runs sort of within the country, sometimes in the higher echelons of power. So, it does happen, doesn't it? But what can the FAI do? What can the FAI do? I think they have to restructure. I think they have to listen to the government. And I think if the government are helping them, willing to help them, I think they've got to clear the board. And the government have got to put people in there that will do the job right for them, that will do the job properly. And I think it has to be a government-led initiative to fix DFAI. That's just my opinion, but maybe you have a different opinion on that before we move on.
No, 100%. Look, something needs to happen. There's no point in telling the guys to shake themselves up, because all they do is just restructure it and still put in the same sort of previous regime. Anyone that goes into the job is sort of covering up for the mistakes of the past all the time. What you need is just someone to come in and go, look, this is the extent of the crisis, this is the extent of the problem, and this is what we need to do moving forward. Because at the end of the day, every football fan across the country is well aware of how corrupt the FAI is and how much money actually goes missing out of it and stuff like that. So it wouldn't be to anyone's shock, Dharma, what actually comes out at this point. So for me, I think if they really want to gather the interest of the public again, because you see it yourself. You look at that big stadium that we built, they built it off the back of good times. You look at rugby games, there's such a demand for tickets. They sell them out, and you're paying premium if it's sold out and try to get a ticket. You look at that, the games for the Republic of Ireland, you can still get a ticket, at 5 minutes before kickoff. What I mean? It's absolutely madness. We were looking at, when we got a season ticket, it was 200 quid. And the reason why they're 200 quid for the year is because they can't sell them. So they're trying to sell, the batch of games for the whole year. That's how much of a mess it is. It's an absolute disgrace. So I think what needs to happen really is someone just to come in and be honest about, the problems, where the money's gone in the past, and look, to sort of generate, a new era moving forward. And I think that really needs to happen. You listen to a lot of pundits on the radios, you read a lot of news articles, you listen to a lot of ex-players, everyone says the same thing. It needs a massive shake-up.
It does. And look, we're going for the young lad that's moving from the League of Ireland to Tottenham in the summer, in January, for $1 million. Forget his name off the top of my head.
Mason Elliott.
Mason Elliott, yeah. The highest ever player to be sold from Ireland to England, from an Irish club to an English club. It does show the in-depth of the League of Ireland, how it's doing, how it's progressing. Do you think the clubs have to go independent from the FAI? Do you think they have to do what's happened in England with the Premier League, that the 20 Premier First Division clubs went away and formed up their own league? Do you think the League of Ireland clubs have to do the same? I think they do. Because I think for them to get better and for facilities to get better, to then to build bigger stadiums, to get more people in, better facilities, better for the youngsters, I think they have to, as a group, go, you do what you want with the national side, but we're going to form. And you may get people coming into sponsoring like Sky or like other major television companies that will come in and say, right, we're going to invest in this. I think they have to do that personally.
See, the problem you've got there, Darmo, there has to be a big enough TV deal, over so many years that these clubs can self-sustain themselves off that sort of TV deal. And the problem is you're not going to get that. Like Sky Sports, they've got the Premier League, the SPFL, they've shown Bundesliga games, and stuff like that. League of Ireland, is it really going to attract the interest, in terms of watching games? For it to make their sort of payout worthwhile. I don't think so. So there is your problem right there. You know, you're not
Mm.
going to get a big enough TV deal, and these clubs are going to be very reluctant to take, you know, a small enough package, because they know once that money goes after a year or two, because they've been there before. Remember, they tried to do it with Satanta
Yeah,
Sports.
they
You know
did.
what I
Yeah,
mean? All of a sudden,
they
they
got
go.
burnt.
You know, a lot of clubs got burnt. You know, a lot of clubs, you know, the government, like, they weren't getting the same money off the government and stuff, and a lot of them went bankrupt. So for me, you know, they're relying on the government funding right now. So a lot of them are going to continue with that. You got to remember, a lot of the games that are shown on RTE or Virgin
Yeah, they
Media. You
are.
know, RTE is a government state-run channel. You know what I mean? So that's where the money's coming from and stuff like that. So they're going to be very reluctant to leave the comfort of the funding that they're getting to take a gamble right now, because let's be honest, the stadiums aren't there, the infrastructure isn't there, and
No.
stuff like that. Like, you look at any young lad that's making the step up across from League of Ireland to England, especially, you know, if they're going straight into Premier League clubs, they struggle because of the training that they're getting over here. Like, you know, they're getting training, all right, but in terms of the physicality, the strength, conditioning, etc., you know, it's way below, you know, what the standards are in England. So when they go to England, they're almost playing catch up. There's a great podcast out there, I may get the name of it, and they interview a lot of young lads that have gone from the League of Ireland into the Premier League, and they all say the exact same thing. You know, the biggest step up is the physicality, the demands, and everything else. You know, so it's a huge problem for these Irish young lads coming up. So
It is.
you know, they need to start pumping money into these clubs, getting better training facilities, and try and make the league go full time. But I'd also argue, I don't think the FAIs of Northern Ireland or Ireland have helped their teams in the league. Like, you've got two leagues that are a bit, like, don't get me wrong, the League of Ireland is it's a much better standard than what it has been, you know, in recent years and stuff like that. But, you know, I remember years ago they tried to bring both to the party and sort of make, you know, form the Northern
A
teams and the
United
Southern
League.
teams into a big league,
Yeah.
you know, and have a couple of
I
tiers and
remember
stuff
that.
like that. And, you know, for whatever reason, you know, they couldn't put differences aside and all that sort of stuff and get it going. But I think if you want to track the likes of that TV deal that you're talking about, that the Premier League teams got in order to form that breakaway and sort of, you know, break your ties from government funding and stuff like that, you know, they have a better chance of getting it when you bring all of these teams together, you know, both leagues together and stuff like that, rather than individual and stuff. So look, reality is, Dermo, we're a long way away from League of Ireland teams really breaking away.
I mean, Dave, that's never going to happen, because their differences go all the way back to the Civil War. That's how long it goes back, and that goes. I mean, the Civil War was over 100 years 100 years old now, 101 years old since it happened, and that's how far it goes back. And it's rarely is. It was the same like with politics, Civil War politics, Civil War within Ireland is still a decisive issue to this very day. It still has its impact into different societies. Big up to Wayne. Wayne says to restructure the FAI with capable people who want to focus on the football, not the theft, build on a new foundation, build a new house on top of it. I think the government have to come in and do it. And he is asking that, is Irish football shown on RTE? It's shown on RTE, I think, on a Friday, but mostly on Virgin Media. We're very lucky in this country that our league is shown live on free to air, where in England it isn't, behind the paywall. So I think we're very lucky in that sense that it is shown free to air. I think you're right, Dave. I think, look, I was more thinking the back of 92-93 when it was I think a 6.3 million funding from TV monies for the TV rights, or something along that, or 100 million, I can't remember. But you're right, it has to be a joint league, North and South. And I do feel the FAI and the Northern Ireland Football Association have to get together, put the differences aside for the good of soccer in this country. It's called soccer over here, not football, because of Gaelic football. So they call it soccer over here. I had put them best aside and move on, because Irish soccer is doing well at the moment, and we've got to be proud of that, but more needs to be done. Dave, that's enough about our own country, our own domestic league. Let's go over across the water to N17, the pride of our hearts, the love of the club we love the most, apart from our families, Tottenham Hotspur. 7 games in, Dave. Look, I was on your show on Saturday, and I said to you that if somebody said to me we'd be where we are after 6 games, I'd bite the hand off. Where we are after 7 games, I definitely would have bitten her arm off up to the shoulder blade. Might have bitten the head off as well for that. Just go for the whole main course and dessert. Yes, I know we've got difficult games coming up in November. We've got Liverpool, we've got Chelsea, we've got Manchester United, we've got Arsenal, we've got League Cup away to Newcastle. Tougher games to come. We've got Monaco away and then we've got a Champions League home game against, I think it's Dortmund, I think at home. But I think Thomas Frank, if you look at Nottingham Forest under Ange Postecoglou and you look at Tottenham, the glaring difference, we can see where the problem was under Ange Postecoglou's Tottenham management. Thomas Frank has sorted that out. Yes, we can score goals. Yes, we need striker. Yes, we need forward players. I agree with you. But defense alone, I think we're more solid at the back. And I actually have this feeling, and I'm watching games, Dave, that Porro, Van der Ven, Romero, and Jed Spence, or your doggy, seem to be enjoying playing under Thomas Frank. And giving Romero the captaincy was a stroke of genius because it's challenged his anger. He's not reckless with his tackles anymore. He's keeping calm. He's more dedicated to the captaincy and willing his team through a captaincy to win. That game against Leeds at the weekend, second half, when things get a little bit tough, he moved us forward as a captain. He took the game by the scruff of the neck. He took the team by the scruff of the neck. You can see him when he brings the ball out. He's pointing, he's shouting, get into that position. Why you're not there? I want an option. And he's challenging the players in front of him, which I think is a great thing. But Dave, 7 games in, international break, 3rd in the league, only 2 points behind Liverpool, 2 points behind Arsenal, a point behind Liverpool. You've got to be a happy Spurs fan at the moment, surely.
Oh, yeah, 100%. I mean, you'll take it considering where we were last season. I think, we've got off to a good start. And look, Thomas Frank has sort of done exactly what I expected him to do when he came in here, which was make us defensively more solid, make us concede a lot less goals from set pieces, but also up the output from attacking set pieces. And he's done all that. My big concern about Thomas Frank coming in here was he couldn't just copy and paste Brentford ball. He's going to have to sort of play a better brand of football. When Thomas Frank come in here, I think I was the only one across YouTube that highlighted his Brentford team had some of the lowest percentage stats in the league. Yeah. And that was never going to fly at Tottenham Hotspur. Despite whatever manager we have, we still want to be good on the eye to watch. That's just the DNA of the football club. So most fans won't sort of what's the word? Sort of allow anything but, that's why when you've had managers come in here, the likes of Jose, Conte and Nuno, everyone sort of, wanted them to play a better brand of football. I think everyone is sort of clamoring to get a bit like what we were on the pitch, where we had defensive stability, but we're also very good to watch on the eye. And I think we've been shown that we can have both. I mean, I think Spurs fans sort of are so desperate to get back to that point. However, Thomas Frank was always going to have to come in here and make us hard to beat first and sort of work on the attacking approach. And I think, he's done that. That's why we are where we are. However, there are a few sort of warning signs that worry me. Clean sheets, they're not coming around as much anymore. We've conceded goals, I think, in our last 4 or 5 games, which is making it harder for us to win games because our attack isn't good enough, in general, to go and score 2, 3, 4 goals nearly every single game. So, we need to get back to keeping clean sheets, but it's not really Frank's issue. Vicario is making a number of mistakes in recent weeks. That is leading to goals. I mean, and this is the problem. Frank can come in with the right tactics, try and instill a better mentality and try and help us win games. But the problem we've got at Tottenham Hotspur is too many players blow hot and cold. You don't have enough consistency right throughout that team in terms of when you're putting these players out on the pitch. And there's nothing that Thomas Frank can do. The only option he's got is to bring in Kinski. But Kinski, the reason why I feel like he's number 2 is because when he was involved, his shot stopping was called into question. He was better in, at command in his box. He was better at distribution, but his shot stopping was weak. And I feel like, so, what does Thomas Frank do there? I find that hard to put it on him. And then you go into the front line. Like, this is my big problem. Like, I don't think he's helped himself to a large degree. Look, don't get me wrong. Having the likes of Solanke, Mawani, Kulusevski, and Maddison out injured is more than tricky enough for any sort of manager to deal with, because you like to think when majority of them come back, they probably slide into that forward line somewhere. At least 2 of them do straight into that forward line. And it probably would make a huge difference. But I also think Frank has rotated too much in that forward line. You know, he keeps sporadically giving Brennan Johnson appearances. Why? If the guy doesn't merit them when he comes off the bench in games, stop starting him in games. Stop. I think Frank is making too many rotational changes. I think, you know, rotational changes against Wolves cost us. I think not starting Xavi Simons against Brighton cost us. You know, I think, you know, not starting Kudos and Simmons away at Bodo, you know, showed his lack of experience in Europe, and I think it come back to cost us. So there are some sort of concerns and warning signs. Also, you take into account our opening fixtures. I mean, we haven't really played anyone of note, bar Man City. You know, we played Burnley, beat them, played West Ham, beat them, took a point to Brighton, took a point to Wolves, beat Leeds. You know, the teams we've beat have all been relegation fodder. You know, when we, you know, even Wolves we struggle against. You know, when we've come up against teams that are higher up the table, bar Man City, who we always beat. You know, we dropped points to Brighton, we've dropped points to Bournemouth. You know, and I think the league position is a bit of a, I think it looks good right now, but I think it sends out a bit of a false narrative. For instance, like you look at who Arsenal have played since the start of the season. They've played Man United, they've played Liverpool, they've played Man City, they've played Newcastle. You know, they've had a much more difficult start to the season than us, and they're up above us right now in terms of the league table and stuff like that. So I think, look, where I'm at is the reason why I'm sort of very reluctant to just sit here and go, oh, everything's fixed at Tottenham is I've been here before, Dermot, and I think I'm learning my lesson. You know,
I don't.
One second, we had a good manager bounce, you know, when Jose first came in. It didn't last long after the October international break. We had a good manager bounce when Conte came in. You know, it doesn't last long after the first October international break into his next season. You know, we had a good manager bounce when Nuno came in. He was sacked not long after the October international break. You know, Postecoglou came off 10 good games, you know, after the international break in October. The wheels absolutely fell off. And that's where my sort of big concern comes in. It's like, can this team sustain this? You know, that's the big question. They've got off to a good start, but that's not enough, you know, to show me that things have changed. Can you sustain this now between now and Christmas and still hang on to a respectable position, you know, in the league and stuff like that? Still maintain performances the way some of the bigger teams do. So for me, let's wait and see, because I'm very hesitant because, you know, I've seen this all before.
No, I've seen it before too. I sort of echo what you said at the end there, that we have to wait and see what happens. Look, it's being a Spurs fan for over 40 years gives me this sort of little bit of a glance that I've seen worse, but I've seen better, but I've seen a lot worse too. I do get what you're saying when we've only played West Ham or Brighton, but them are the teams we struggled to last season, Dave. Them are the teams we went to and lost to. You know, to get a point away at Brighton, I think to come from 2-0 down to get a point, I think it's a great point. I think the best West Ham, yes, West Ham's had a dreadful start to the season. Yes, they've been crap. Yes, they may well go down, but it's a London derby. Anything happens in the London derby. So you get a win there, especially at West Ham, where we haven't played well, Dave, over the years. And yes, West Ham are crap. Yeah, you have to look at the positive as well as the sort of not negatives, but sort of the realization of what we're playing against. And I get you. Yes, we shouldn't have beaten Wolves at home. We haven't had a great record against Wolves, but this is a relegation Wolves. This is a poor Wolves side, and nobody was happy with that performance. Man City away, yes, we're always going to beat Man City, but Man City are a dangerous side in themselves. You get Haaland kicking into gear, you know, but we seem to have their number. So, look, I get what you're saying. I understand what you're saying. And I think Thomas Frank hasn't fixed everything. I think the front line is shocking. I think Brennan Johnson needs to be dropped out of the squad completely. I mean, I'm Brennan Johnson's biggest fan, but even I have to admit he needs to take his head out of his arse and go back to what he did, go back to basics. Because I feel ever since that final, if he did score or didn't score, there's a lot of debate. I think he scored. So to anyone thinks it was a Luke Shaw on goal, I think he scored. I backed him a lot of last season, Dave, and 9 times out of 10, he never let me down. He never let me down. But I think this year, I think he needs to take his head out of his arse. I think Brennan Johnson has to stop thinking he's a big one. He's a big player when he's not. He's not performing. He needs to go back to basics. He needs to go back to what he do. And the problem Thomas Frank has as well, where do you play him? I think that is the biggest question Thomas Frank has when he starts to select the team. Where do I play him? Because he isn't a winger. I keep saying play him as a striker. A lot of people are saying that's ridiculous. Don't play him as a striker. So where do you play him? And also on the games ahead, I agree with Wayne Bonner here. I want to take a few comments here, Dave. It says we'll do well enough in November. I don't expect to win all of them. I don't. But to show up and perform and get at least 6 to 7 points. Lack of a striker, we're problematic though. I'm big up to the Godfather himself, Mr. Philip Brady, the Godfather himself, who's hiding somewhere in government buildings at the moment, trying to chase down the Minister of Finance because he hasn't given Philip Brady his government rise. So that's what Philip Brady's up to at the moment. Big up, Philip. We are on later, by the way, on our political channel. Join us tonight live at 8 on. I will put the link in later, guys, where me and Philip talk all things politics. The budget will be up there as well. We have an astute tactician in charge now, he writes. He's even writing like a TD. Do you think he should go for? I reckon Philip should have gone for president. I reckon he'd be a great president. Him, Mary. No one. I'm expecting the WhatsApp in the minute for him. No one has beaten Leeds at home in the year. That's true. Our squad has a real quality with Xavi and Kudos. I'm cautiously optimistic. I think we all are a little bit hiding behind our sofas, Dave. Optimistic. In the last little while, it has been announced, whether it was broke last night, but the letter this morning to the London Stock Exchange says that, I read out the full statement, says the board of Tottenham Hotspur Limited, the club, notes the recent announcement from Firehawk and Mr. Eric's consortium that they do not intend to make an offer for the club. The board thanks them for their constructive approach taken into discussions with the clubs and the Lewis family's representatives and respecting the clear position of the Lewis family that the club is not for sale. Following the announcement made by the consortium, the club is no longer in an offer period under the City Code on takeovers and mergers. The person responsible for arranging the release of this announcement on behalf of the club is Peter Carrington, non-executive chairman. And also there has been a tweet from Brooklyn Eric as well. It's been a privilege engaging with Tottenham Hotspur and the Lewis family representatives over the past few months. I have a great respect for the club and its leadership and its supporters, and I wish them nothing but success. Dave, that's just sort of broke in the last sort of hour or so. Well, it dropped at 27. I think it was, last night it dropped. So what's your take on it, Dave? I ran a show last night. Can the Lewis family lead us to glory? Can they?
On this one, I'm sort of going to wait for them to show their true intentions, Dermot, because look, I think Levy gone is exciting, right? At the end of the day, I think he had done a tremendous job in terms of growing the club off the field, bringing the commercial aspect, the stadium with all the stuff that it hosts and brings and everything else, and the training ground and all, the best facilities across the world. And I think every Spurs fan is absolutely grateful for it, especially some of us overseas. It makes it easier for us to be able to get our hands on tickets for games and stuff like that, rather than when it was at White Hart Lane, it was nearly impossible. So I think, in that regard, I think he's been very good for the club. But I sort of was saying, over the last couple of years that I just feel like he doesn't have the risk appetite or the know-how to sort of, really push this club on. I think he's brought it as far as he can, and I think it needs new ideas. And what I meant by that is, I think, he grew the club commercially and everything else, but we were still operating the same in the transfer window. Looking to pick up deals, looking to pick up bargains, looking to buy young. And I think the club gave him a massive opportunity, under Ange, the people in, the Lewis family, and that gave him a massive opportunity under Ange Postecoglou and said, right, sort of kick us on now. Then we've got funding, there's money there and everything else. And I think they cocked it up, in the transfer windows. I think the first year under Postecoglou was good, but the next 3 windows, they followed up with absolutely dross. Didn't really improve the situation. I think the club got in that much of a mess. I think they said to him, right, look, we'll give you this summer transfer window. If you don't bring in the right caliber of players, you're gone. And I think that's exactly what we've seen happen. I think they gave him large parts of this window. He had his pants pulled down by Parish and Marinakis and stuff like that. And I think it was getting to the point where a lot of clubs just didn't want to deal with Daniel Levy. So he couldn't get deals for players that we needed because no one wanted to deal with them.
Mm.
You know, so I think all in all, I think his time had just naturally come to an end. I think they said to him, show us something different, and he couldn't. He went down the route of just bringing in more youngsters because it's all he knows how. You know, he was sort of operating the same model that he was using to be able to generate the money to be able to build that stadium, which was buy young and look to develop. You know, and I think many at board level realised that the club is beyond that now. You know, in order to compete now, you need to buy ready-made talent, and I think you know, somewhere across the summer transfer window, you know, someone else took the reins of it, and that's why we end up getting in a Mawani and a Xavi Simons and that, you know, towards the end of the
window. And
the Paulinia and stuff like that. You know, I feel like that's why we've ended up going and getting them players because someone else has maybe, you know, took hold of that transfer window, and that's why I think we've seen something different because a lot of the conversations were around as Daniel Levy changed his ways, and I'm sort of like, I doubt it. You know, a leopard doesn't change his spots. You know what I mean? It's sort of like. So I think it's exciting. However, when it comes to the Lewis family, though, Dermo, I mean, Daniel Levy didn't just make up them constraints on himself as chairman. You know, I mean,
agree with you.
They came from the people that were all involved at board level. You know, a lot of the Lewis family and stuff like that. So sort of like, are they just using him as a scapegoat because the amount of attention that he was gathering, all the protests and everything else, you know, I don't think they want that, you know, especially if they're trying to generate a massive sale for the football club. You don't want that sort of bad attention or that negative attention because it sort of brings down the price and stuff. So I'm thinking, you know, that's another reason why they got rid of him. And I'm going to wait and look. January, I think, is a very hard window to judge them on. I'm going to be fair here. January is very hard to get the desired quality that you need to be able to sort of, you know, be a game changer for you and really help you kick on. Because a lot of the clubs don't want to sell their better players, so they'd rather wait until the summer transfer window to do that. So I think next summer is the window where I'm really going to judge them, you know, and see what their ambition is in terms of what they do in the transfer market. Do they go and make the Paulinia signing permanent? Do they learn from the Paulinia sign and look at the impact that he's already made? That many fans said, if you buy players of a certain caliber at a certain age, they'll come in and make this instant impact. They've been proven right. Will they look around in the market for more players like that? You know, so let's wait and see. I'm not one of them where I'm jumping for joy and I'm clapping my hands, you know, or everyone just get behind the Lewis family. No, give me something to get behind. Show me your hand first.
Yeah, I agree. Look, I agree with you in so many ways, Dave, but also I always feel that it was Joe Lewis and Levy working in tandem. I don't think it was, and I think with the window as well, I think Vinay took a lot of control of that window. And we broke early in the year, early before the end of the season, that Paratici was back at Tottenham. He is back within the fold. Whatever place he's in with Tottenham, he's never left. I think he took control of it as well. That's why we got Colo in. I think that's why we got Simmons in. I think that's a Vinay and a Paratici signing. I think Paulinho again was a Paratici signing. I think Johan Lang needs to go, but how he's still at the job, I do not know. But are we being a bit unfair to Johan Lang? Are we being a little bit unfair? Maybe he's working to the remit of Daniel Levy, and Daniel Levy's remit was, as you say, buy young to develop. I just feel Daniel Levy will know next summer who was really to blame. We will know next summer who was really to blame. If it was the Lewis family, if it was Joe Lewis telling Daniel Levy, this is what I want you to do, or Daniel Levy took it upon himself to do it how he wanted to do. So I think next summer's going to be very telling. One quick thing before I let you back in. Sorry, Dave. Just one quick thing. I want to say that January, I expect Lewis family to make some sort of a tell in January, even if it's to buy one decent player, even as to buy a left back or make a deal to buy a striker in the summer, or even go for a loan of Vlahovic. I know Ivan Toney's name's been mentioned. Even if it's a 6 months loan for Toney, I wouldn't mind that because Toney is a striker. He is a striker. He's worked with Thomas Frank before, and he is a striker. He's better than Solanke, and he's better than Richarlison. So I think we have to see, but they have to show some intent in January. It's all right saying I'm going to give him a pass. I'm not. I want some sort of intent in January to prove to me that you are going to be different when it comes to the summer. So that's why I am in it, Dave. Just one more question on this. You've had a few takeover bids now for Spurs. I'm very critical on state ownership in the Premier League. I think it's wrong. I don't think it should be allowed. And I'm very, very sort of uneasy with an American takeover. Though, if you look at Liverpool, they have a successful way of running the club. But if you look at the Glazers at Manchester United, that is the worst case scenario. What is your own preference, Dave? What's your own personal preference on who runs the club? If they were to sell the club, how would you like it to be sold?
Look, ideally, you want Tottenham fans that, want the team to be successful and sort of, and come in here. And ideally someone that, is from around Tottenham or something, maybe. But the reality is, though, Darmo, them days are gone in football, with the Premier League, because it's the biggest and best league in the world. They've got monstrosities of stadiums, training complexes, everyone that's involved in the club. It doesn't matter what position you work in, you're on astronomical amounts of money and everything else. Football clubs are being charged astronomical amounts of money for services and all that sort of stuff as well. So it's sort of like, unfortunately, in order to keep the Premier League going at the rate it's going, it is global investment. That's just where the game is at in terms of English football right now. It's the biggest, best league in the world, and the days of your local businessman buying your club and have enough money to run it is gone. That's why you're seeing consortiums come together now.
Yeah, so if you have a choice between a Qatari or a state ownership or a Qatari prince or something coming in to buy the club, or an American NFL style partnership, what would you prefer?
I'll be brutally honest. I don't trust any of them. I think some of these.
You're right up my street, then. Yeah,
I think some of these people are coming into football for their own sort of reasons. I think.
Yeah.
A lot of the American ownerships, they would prefer to go to a European Super League sort of model.
Yeah.
And I think they'd also have the balls to go and sort of, bring it about. You look where the funding was coming from, Morgan and Chase and all that for it as well. True. I'm very, very, hesitant in allowing them to sort of take over. But also, look, to be honest with you, I think, the states that are buying football clubs, they're buying it for their own agendas as well, aren't they? You know what I mean? And stuff. And eventually you're going to see some of them wanting to bring a game out to their home country.
Well, that was my next question.
For me, as long as your best intentions is to keep Tottenham in Tottenham Hotspur, play all of our home games at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium, and you want to make the club successful, I'll take it. But at the end of the day,
I get you.
It's just you're not in a good situation, are you?
No. I want to go on that point. That's a very good point. Very quickly, I want to get a few more to the chat, keep the people involved. That's what we do here. Big up to Hot God 10. Good afternoon, Dermot and Dave. Frank has just arrived. Big up, James. Hope you're doing well, bud. He said he's doing a solid job. We don't have a proper winger on the left. Resolve this area, and I feel we'll kick in terms of attacking. Totally agree. Philip Brady says, up to Lewis Clang now. Players, not hotels. Totally agree, Philip. Totally agree. It's one of the last questions me and Dave are going to turn on about the Lewis and they read what they're doing around the stadium. Should they put their money into redeveloping the local area? Though they do an awful lot with the local area. Should they do more? We've got Big Ryan, big up Dermo and Davo. When's the next fan show, Dave?
Sorry, Rhino, Wednesday.
So, Wednesday. There you go, Ryan. I'll be joining you Wednesday. You and me will be, I don't know, button heads or agreeing. You and me seem to be agreeing a lot of that, Ryan. Lately, Ryan. It's getting a bit weird. We shouldn't be here, but never mind. We've got Absolute 22. Makarosik belongs in the championship. Very quickly on Ange Postecoglou at Forest, Dave. Are you surprised how bad he's done there? Or do you I say Ange is not a Prem manager. Would you agree with that?
Am I surprised at how bad he's done there? No, I think he might have jumped into a job too soon. I think Postecoglou probably could have done with a sort of period of reflection. Unfortunately, I don't think that's going to come because I think by winning Europa League, he sort of feels vindicated about his way, his style of play, etc., etc. I think he took the job, that Marinakis gave him because I think they're good friends and stuff like that, aren't they? So, But look, to be honest with you, I see a lot of fans making a lot out of it. Look, I respect the guy for delivering a trophy here, despite, against all the odds and everything else. He delivered a trophy. I got to go to that parade. I got to celebrate it with my dad. And, all my family, friends, and all you guys out there. So, I'll be forever grateful for that. You gave me one of the greatest days of my lifetime, despite giving me, probably two of the most hellish years of my lifetime. So, I mean, would I do it all again? Probably would if the Europa League came off the back of it again and we were on that barren run. But, it's weird because a lot of people go, you have to forget about Postecoglou. But no matter what group chat you go into, no matter on Twitter, people are still having a constant dig at him. And look, he brought that on himself because he sort of alienated himself against the Spurs fans, didn't he? But I also think because of the way he speaks and treats the media, I think he's got total lack of respect for them. I think there's a big clamour in terms of the Premier League media that they just make him a laughing stock and they just don't want him in the game because he doesn't play to their games. He doesn't want to do their interviews and all that sort of stuff. So I think there'll be a big drive within the media to sort of push him out of the English game as well. But look, he's only new in at first. I think, one thing people have to remember, he's trying to change the style of play completely, from a defensive sort of brand of football, playing on the counter to playing more possession-based. That is going to take time. But off the back of the job he done at Tottenham in the Premier League, is any club really going to give him that time? Probably not.
No, and look, we're both big Celtic fans as well, Dave, so we know what he did up in Celtic. We have that respect for him. Yes, we have a slight laugh at him with Tequila doing the Ange sketch that we did last night. He does a very good Ange Postecoglou impersonation. And we sort of have a laugh, and we're not having a dig at him. And look, he deserves respect. He's the third manager in our history to win a European trophy behind Bill Nick, behind Keith Birkinshaw. That's not to be sniffed at. But I think also you are right. He has brought it upon himself, the way he treats the media. I watched his press conference after the first game against Newcastle, and I felt he was quite rude towards some of the media people in there. Maybe rightly so for how he was treated at Tottenham. Maybe he has a vendetta against them. I don't know. But I think the way that Forest treated us over the summer, I think Forest are getting what they deserve, personally. But look, it is what it is. Do I wish him success? If it was at any other club in the world, I probably would do. At Forest, not a hell's chance. Big up to Mary W. I hope you're feeling better, Mary, the queen of this channel. Big up to you. She says, let's see who is to blame. Exactly, Mary, 100%. Big up to Rayman. It says, fan buyout with Dermot as chairman and Dave as head of hiring and firing.
I could do the Alan Sugar role.
No, I'm chairman.
No,
yeah, you can do the Alan Sugar. I'm sitting there and chairman. Yeah, I don't know how much money I'm going to give the manager. Probably about €2.50. And if he's really good, I might give him an extra euro if he's good. But big up to Rayman. Dave, look, we are going to go in the last 10 minutes of this podcast, guys. If you are enjoying it, hit the like, hit subscribe. We're just going to go for a short break. To read our channel sponsor, Private Internet Access. It is the best VPN around. Forget your NordVPN. Forget all the rest of them that say we'll give you a good deal, but they end up charging you a fortune. And this Private Internet Access, don't do that. You pay €45 for 2 years. And at the end of that 2 years, they give you 4 months free as well on top of that. So I've bought it. I've been using it. It's brilliant for your Saturday games that are not on telly. It's absolutely fantastic, guys. The link for it's in the description below. But here, telling you, it's a short video as we'll go for a little short break on this podcast. And here is Colin to tell you all about Private Internet Access, the proud sponsors of THFC Till We Die for the 25-26 football season. Here you go.
Let me talk to you. A little reference there. But I'm going to stop messing about. I'm going to talk to you about Private Internet Access, the best VPN in the land. Now, when you're online, you may not realize, but all of your data is there for the taking by anybody. With a VPN such as Private Internet Access, your data is safe and secure, streamlined, and nobody else can get hold of it. That's why I use one anyway. VPN's very easy to use. Private Internet Access, all you got to do is log on your phone, select where you want to be. So I want to be in America, and I click go, and there we are. You can also link up your devices to it from your phone if that is easier for you. It's available on a lot of platforms as well. As you can see, you can use it for a very, very big range of things. So that's even better as well. You can use it, like I said, on all your devices, smartphone, tablets, gaming consoles, and stick it on your modem. and it's unlimited devices. One equals all. It's available all across the world, and it works perfectly. What they do is they mask your IP address, so pesky 3 o'clock kickoffs aren't an issue anymore, and they're independently audited, so there's no logs, 30 million customers, and 4.5-star Trustpilot rated excellent review. Private internet access. Get yours now.
Yes, guys, do get private internet access. The link is below. Hit there. €45 for 2 years. Plus 4 months free, 2 months free, absolutely a bargain. And yes, we are better than NordVPN. Though NordVPN is saying, no, we're better than private internet access. Don't listen to them. Listen to the Dermatron. He knows what makes sense. Dave, look, we're going to the last bit of this podcast now. Look, I was talking last night. I was doing a show last night, and the night before, it's gone over 2 nights. This sort of debate about ownership and about the way football is now, and about corruption within football and the Premier League, the charges to Man City, FIFA, UEFA. 2 points. I want to start on this point first. When it comes to the Man City saga with the Premier League, I am very surprised nothing's come off of this yet. Now, that leads me to believe that the Premier League aren't going to do anything. Or Man City are kicking this so far down the road that they can't do anything yet. From a Tottenham point of view, they beat us in the League Cup final, and that's one trophy for us. But there's other teams that have won trophies. From a Tottenham point of view, do you think the Spurs board and the owners should be looking to sue Man City if they are found guilty of cheating? And which it is, they cheated. So do you think Tottenham should... And what punishment would you give them? Add that to a second question, though. But if you think Tottenham should sue, then what punishment should the Premier League be giving Man City to make you happy as a football fan?
Yeah, look, I've no doubt those who lost out in that time probably will all look to clamour together and, sue for damages and stuff like that. I think that's only natural. I think, what was it, Sheffield United tried to sue West Ham all them years ago when they ended up beating them to safety, and then there was dodgy dealings around the Tevez and Mascherano deal, so they tried to sue them for compensation. So I think you're going to see that naturally. Look, in terms of punishment, probably take strip them of all their trophies, put them down into the National League, make them sort of build their way back up, I think would be fair. I think Juventus got done, all them years ago in Serie A, didn't they? They got stripped of a lot of things and moved down to Serie D, Rangers as well. I think the only appropriate punishment would be to Man City to do the same.
Yeah, I agree with you. Very quickly on Rangers, Russell Martin was sacked yesterday. I was watching TalkSport yesterday, and there was a question about mob rule and what happened. How the Rangers there was a lot of Rangers fans there with masks on, and it seemed a little bit unsavory, I would say, very intimidating, sitting in front of the bus, wouldn't let the players go. Russell Martin had to be taken out another way to get into a car. Rangers put out a statement saying was all about the manager, but nothing condemning the fans, what they do. Look, we're massive Celtic fans, so we're sitting there laughing our heads off at Rangers. We really are. But from a football fan point of view, Dave, if you were a Rangers fan or a Rangers, I'm sorry for I need to go to confessions after saying that. I do apologize. But if you were a Rangers board member, would you have put out something condemning your own fans for what they've done? Because there's all right protesting like we've done over Levy and Enoch. Tottenham fans have never done anything illegal. Manchester United fans got a game abandoned because of the Glazers. Then the United board put out against their own fans. Do you think boards such as Rangers and that should put out a statement saying condemning their own fans for that sort of behaviour? Or do you think it's just football and it's emotions and it's okay in your book?
Wasn't Russell Martin had to leave the stadium because of death threats or something like that?
It was. Yeah,
and was that from Rangers fans?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah,
but that's gone way. That's gone way too far. It's football at the end of the day. You know, way too far. I think, the board should have probably put out a statement. And to be honest with you, at the end of the day, a lot of these clubs, they know who their ultras are and stuff like that. I mean, why not go and have a meeting with them? At the end of the day, I wouldn't say it's uncommon. I would reckon a lot of Serie A teams, I reckon that, they've all got ultras. French teams, they've all got ultras. I have no doubt. Sort of they have meetings with people with inside the club and stuff like that to try and, keep things level and stuff like that. But, and there's no excuse for what the Rangers fans have done whatsoever.
No, there isn't. Just very quickly before we end off, Dave, there's a couple of score predictions for the Ireland games. I know you don't really want to do what we do. And also, firstly, score predictions for the Ireland games. Sorry.
Look, Portugal is going to be a tough ask, isn't it?
Yeah.
We're away as well. We do well to keep it at 3-4-0, to be honest with you.
I'm going for 5-0.
Don't get me wrong, I've got shades of the old team, Roy Keane in midfield when we pull the result. Yeah. But look, it's going to be a long, tough ask. I'm not really expecting anything from that. No. Probably 2-3-0 there. Armenia, is Armenia at home the next one, isn't it?
Yeah, I'm not holding much hope out for that either.
I mean, they popped us off the park over there. You would hope if the Ireland team would want to put something right, but they don't look like a team with much fight in them anyway. So I'll go 1-1.
Are they playing for the manager, do you think? Or do you think they're giving up on the manager? I think they're giving up on the manager, to be fair.
Look, I don't think a lot of these guys have played for the manager. I don't think a lot of them really played for Stephen Kenny, I think a lot of them, they look at the coaching they're receiving, at clubs, and then they go to the international level. And I think, it's probably like just a piss up in a brewery, to be quite honest with you. It's well known that a lot of these players, they like a night out, in terms of training, it's a bit of a piss up, there's not much actually going on in terms of coaching, fitness or anything like that. So, I mean, there's probably a lot of that large element to it as well, where a lot of players are just sort of using that as a bit of a reprieve from the demands of the domestic fixture schedule, Dermo.
I agree with you, Dave. I agree with you. Look, we're going to end up here. Big up to Refresher. Do hit the like button and subscription if you're new, Refresher. Great to see you here, man. It says Premier League needs to be shortened to just 16 teams. Get rid of the rest of the rubbish. I sort of disagree with that. I think you need 20. But look, everyone is entitled to their opinion. And that's what I love about this channel. Dave, that's the end of another Irish Lads Talk Spurs podcast. I've really enjoyed this one. It's been a bit varied. I've really enjoyed it. We will be back next week at 2, guys. Don't worry, we're going to be back more regularly now. Partly my fault, not being away as well, so we haven't had
partly mine as well.
No, I won't blame you. Blame me, Dave. We'll let you off the hook. Dave, but you do have a fantastic channel. The channel that I started my journey on, the mothership to here, channel that I aspire to become and look to match in a few years. The Irish Hotspur, what you got coming over there in the next few days, Dave? Because you've got a few good shows coming up.
Yes, we're going to have our debate show at 6:30 this evening. Panel show where we discuss all the latest things going on at Tottenham Hotspur. Tomorrow, then we'll do our fan show. Thursday, then we'll also do, another sort of discussion show going through some of the news and stuff. I'm cooking up a few short ideas, but they're more so to be released more so over the course of December and stuff like that. Yeah. So, and then, back to the regular sort of routine next week then, Dermo.
Yeah, it is. It is back. Everyone do go over to the Irish Hotspur. A great channel, a great friend to me. One of my best friends on YouTube and off YouTube as well. Me and Dave, I've met Dave loads of times. He is what he is on screen. He is a perfect gentleman, and I have a great time for this man. Really do. Absolutely admire him. And he's given he may give me my confidence to start on this journey, and I will forever grateful for what the Irish Hotspur do for this channel and continue to do for our channel. Absolutely top. Him and Jack, top blokes. Really love them to bits. They're both of them. On here, we've got the Fantasy League football show tomorrow night, guys, at 5. So that's for you members only. We've got our we're gonna look to start our own fan show on Thursday. So if you're members, do come over, do come in, have your say. Friday, we've got the build up to the Ireland game where I'm gonna do normally the pre-game thoughts for Ireland. I'm going to run it as normal as I would for a match day. So on Saturday, we've got before the whistle, we've got the watch along and then match reactions. Then we gear up for the Portugal game, and then we're all gearing up then for the Aston Villa game. Dave, quick prediction for the Aston Villa game. I know we're on next week, but just I wanted to see with your quick thoughts on that.
It's a home or away, Derm. I think we're
home.
Our home form isn't actually good, is it? You know, our away
it's
form
not.
is really good. Our home form isn't the greatest. First game off the back of international duty, usually a difficult sort of game to navigate. Probably going to be a draw, but I'm obviously hoping for a Tottenham win. Do you know? I'll go 2-1.
Do you know what? I'm going to agree with you. I'm going to go for a 2-1 win as well. But yeah, guys, do join Dave tonight at 6:30, Dave. You're on at 6:30? Join 6:30 for the debate show. Join me tomorrow at 5, you members. And then I may do something tomorrow night. I'm not sure yet. I feel a rant coming on about Vicario. Something me and Dave will get on to next week. It was one of the topics. We didn't get to it. So we're going to talk about Vicario next week. But guys, thank you for watching. Big up to everyone. Big up to Leo, Rain Man. Big up to Mr. Philip Brady, Hot God 10, Wayne Bonner as well, Absolute 22 as well, for all coming in. Thank you all for watching, making this podcast very popular. We are back next week at 2. Me and Dave, Irish lads that talk Spurs. Come on, you Spurs. Let's get out of here. Let's enjoy the rest of our Tuesday. Come on.
Eyes on the